Hey, everybody. How are you all? I'll have a fun weekend. One of my favorite things to do on the weekend is find new parks to go to. And I especially love parks that are on the water. And I found a really nice one right on the Delaware River, which was beautiful. It's a fun way to spend some time taking a hike, looking at water, listening to the sound of the birds. Of course, every time a squirrel ran by, my little dog thought she needed to chase the squirrel. So that complicates things a little bit. All right. Anybody have any questions or anything they want to share with the group? No? All right. Let's go ahead and begin then. As always, if you do have any questions, don't hesitate to contact me. Let's see here. This is not working. Give me 1 minute. Okay. Can everybody see that? Where it says Introduction to Invertebrates. Good, good, wonderful. Okay, so when we study just about any subject, we always have to start with the basics. And that's true of zoology too. We have to learn about things like classification and behavior and animal anatomy. And we've been doing that for the last couple of weeks, but now finally we're ready to start learning about the different actual animal groups. And we start with invertebrates, which is at the end of the book. So we're going to start at the end of the book and work our way backwards. There's a couple reasons for that. You can read what my reasons are in the lesson. Basically, the biggest one is I'm not a big fan of bugs, and I like to get them out of the way. I like to study them at the beginning so I don't have to, look forward to learning about insects the rest of the time. Some bugs I like. Isn't it funny how, like, we all think of a butterfly and we're like, oh, how cute, and a ladybug. But then there are, the cockroaches and bees and even worms that are a little bit more, they have a little bit more of an ickiness factor to them. Well, anyway, we're going to start learning with invertebrates. But first, I have a couple reminders I need to tell you guys. First of all, for those of you who live where you have Pacific time or Central time, either way, keep in mind that we have AIM Academy set for Eastern time. So we don't have any way in Canvas to set it for different time zones. So for those of you on the West Coast, that actually means that your due date is 9 o'clock p.m. For those of you in Central time, that means your due date is 11 o'clock p.m. And there isn't any way that I can change that. So if I changed the date, it would basically register it as the next day and we'd be right back where we started from. Keep in mind, though, a couple things. I post assignments at least 2 weeks before the due date, and I feel like that gives you plenty of time. So those 3 hours shouldn't make a difference when you've had 2 to 3 weeks. And I also accept things after the due date with no penalty. Now, just please plan to submit your assignments by midnight Eastern time if you want that extra credit point that you get for turning things in. All right. Another thing I want to point out is this plagiarism check. I want to tell you for right now, just ignore it. I know some of you guys have gotten pretty high readings. For one thing, if you include the questions, which I'll talk about in a second, but if you include the question in that, it automatically registers that as being 50% plagiarized. So we have some bugs to work out with plagiarism check. So we're just going to ignore it for now. If that changes and it starts counting, then I will let you know. But for now, just ignore it. I can't remove it from any of the assignments where somebody has already turned something in. So I can't just delete it. So I'm just going to ask you, don't get upset if you get a high plagiarism check record. It's not something we're going to be concerned about for now. And then finally, I want to talk about how you number your exam questions. So if there are 8 questions on an exam, they're numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Please make sure to number your answers the same way. If you want to put the question in and then put your answer right under that, that's fine. You can do that. If you want to just put down the answers, just make sure your answer number 1 matches up to my question number 1. Your answer number 7 matches up to my question number 7. All right. It's just too hard to grade when you don't put numbers in or your numbers are out of order. So you can't say like the question is 1 and the answer is 2, and then the question is 3 and the answer is 4. That messes it up all the rest of the way down, and it's just too confusing. All right. Any questions about that? Okay, let's have some jokes now. Why wouldn't the butterfly go to the dance?
Because it was too buttery.
No, close though. Or good guess, I guess. It was a mothball. A mothball. How about this one? Why did the octopus cross the road? To get to the other tide. Why don't oysters share their pearls? Somebody should guess this one. Why don't oysters share their pearls? Because they are shellfish. How do oysters call their friends? On their shell phones. And how do shellfish get to the hospital? In a clambulance. All right, I think there's one more. Why did the fly fly?
Because it's a fly.
Oh, go ahead.
Because it's a fly.
Yeah, but the answer is when the spider spied her. When did the fly fly? When the spider spied her. And why was the ant so confused? Because all his uncles were ants. Ants. Okay. All right. All right. So let's talk about this experiment that you guys did. So remember when we do an experiment like the smiling one, where you guys, sometimes you smiled at people, sometimes you didn't. And most of you noticed that when you did, people smiled back. So this is a perfect example of a stimulus leading to a response. You provided the stimulus when you smiled at someone. The response was them smiling back at you. So let's think about this from a science experiment point of view. What was your hypothesis going in? If I do something, then something will happen. What's a good hypothesis for this experiment? Hiba.
If I smile at someone, then they'll smile back at me.
Perfect. Perfect. So that tells you what you're going to do. You're going to smile at someone. It tells you what you're going to look for. You're going to look for them smiling back. If I smile at someone, then they will smile back. That's a perfect hypothesis. Now, think about the variables that might have made the results what they were. Remember what a variable is. We can think of it as a part of an experiment. So there were some variables here that maybe you could or couldn't control that you had to take into consideration. Can anybody think of something that might have affected your results? Hiba.
Maybe like if they were already in a bad mood when you smiled at them.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't know what the mood of the people is, or what the mood is of the people that you're smiling at. Deja. Is that what you're going to say? Yeah. Yeah. So that's definitely one of them. What have they been going through at the time? How many people walked by them and smiled first before you? And now they're just like, seriously, all these kids are smiling at me. What's the big deal? Yeah, those are all different kinds of experiments. So a variable. So remember, we have the variable we're testing, and that is smiling at the person. And then we have all the other variables that we're trying to keep the same. So we want to try to keep them the same. So one thing that might have affected your results is, suppose that when you did the experiment, you found that when you didn't smile at people, they did smile. But when you did smile at them, they didn't. So imagine if your results were flip-flopped. That's where the inability to control humans comes in. So like Hiba said, maybe they were in a bad mood. Maybe the people that you smiled at were all in a bad mood, but the people that you didn't smile at all were just kind of lonely and needed somebody to look at them. And that made them happy and it gave them a smile. Those would be the variables that would be in this experiment. So yeah, if you haven't done the experiment yet, we'll see what your results are. There's still time. All right, let's talk about invertebrates now. So now that we've done the basics, we've learned about things like their life cycles and their anatomy and the way they behave. We're going to start talking about the invertebrates. What does that mean? What do I mean when I say the word invertebrate? Hiba.
Animal without vertebrae.
Yeah, very good, very good. We generally will say without a vertebrae, without a backbone. It's a little bit more complicated, but for our purposes, an animal without vertebrae will do. All right, so there's some pictures of some that are right there. There's might be some that are surprising to you. Have you ever thought of a sponge as an animal? It actually is. A lot of people think sponges are plants, but sponges are the most basic kind of animal that we have. Those sea anemones look like flowers. They look like beautiful plants underwater, but they're not. They're animals. Of course, we know that things like crabs, spiders, and centipedes and earthworms, we know those are all animals. Well, we'll learn about all the different kinds of invertebrate animals as we are going through the next couple weeks. There's so many of them. We're going to spend 3 weeks on them. Now, it helps to have a definition. What do we mean when we say animal? So let's look at the definition of animal. It is a living organism that feeds on organic matter, typically having specialized sense organs and nervous system and able to respond rapidly to stimuli. So what does it mean to feed on organic matter? What's that mean? Mohammed?
To feed like on plants.
Plants is one kind of organic matter. Yep. When we use the term organic matter, basically what we're talking about is something made of carbon for the most part. There are some things made of carbon that are not organic, but that's generally in science what the word organic means. Now, when you hear the word organic, when you're in a grocery store, you think something grown without pesticides, right? Or chemicals. But the word organic in science, especially in biology, means it has carbon in it. And plants certainly have carbon in it. But other living things eat plants, and organic matter would also be those other living things. So to feed on organic matter means to eat other living things, either plants or animals that have eaten the plants. All right, the next thing then is having specialized sense organs. Can you name one? What do we mean by specialized sense organ? Mohammed?
Could it be hearing?
Hearing is one. Yep. Keep going. Hiba?
Like tasting.
Yep. Felicity?
Your eyes.
Yep. Your eyes and seeing is definitely a sense organ. So the organ itself is the eye or the nose or the taste buds. The sense would be seeing, hearing, tasting, touching, smelling, all like that. So generally, those things are going to be consolidated in one area. Like think of it, most of your sense organs are in your face or your head. They're right in this area right here. So generally, those sense organs are on one end of the body. Now, we also, animals have a nervous system. So where's a person's nervous system located? Where's your nervous system? Yeah, James, you're absolutely right. Everywhere is a good example. Everywhere. You have a nervous system that runs throughout your entire body. So you can see here, the main structures of the nervous system are the brain, the spinal cord, and then the nerves that go from the brain and the spinal cord to all the different parts of your body. And there's a lot of them. So the same is true with any animal. Where's the nervous system? Everywhere. It's going to go all throughout. But there are clusters of parts. So where would the biggest concentration of the nervous system parts be in a dog? Mohammed?
Probably the brain.
Yeah, like the brain and the spinal cord. So you can see that right there. Let's make it a little bit tougher. What about a grasshopper? Where do you think the main nervous system parts of a grasshopper are? Hannah?
In the brain.
They're mostly in the brain, and there is a little what's called a nerve cord that runs down like that. You can see that right there. And then jellyfish. Does a jellyfish have a nervous system? You think it does?
Maybe.
It's always a
Um,
good answer, right? Don't commit. Yes, a jellyfish has a nervous system. So the red parts right here are the nervous system of the jellyfish. And a jellyfish is an animal. So animals have that. They eat organic matter. They have the sense organs. They adapt to stimuli. So we'll learn about that too. So since all of these animals have all the parts of the definition, they're all considered animals. Now, remember that animals are composed of what's the smallest particle? When we look at organization, what's the tiniest thing? The thing of that all living things are composed of?
cells.
Yep, cells. So cells are what animals are composed of. They are the smallest unit of structure and function. So what do we call a group of cells that are kind of like one another? They're similar and they perform a specific function. What do we call that? Mohammed?
Organs
Not
or
quite.
tissues.
Jumping over one. Tissues.
Tissues.
Tissues, yeah. Now we have a group of tissues that combine to form, Mohammed?
An organ.
Yeah, now we have organ. Now they combine to form an organ. So a bone is an organ. Isn't that funny? We tend to think of things like the digestive, like the stomach and the brain and the liver and the kidneys. We think of those as organs. But a bone fits that definition. It's a group of different tissues that combines for a specific purpose. So here we can see that bone cells, this is a bone cell right here, it combines with other kinds of tissue to form bone tissue. Bone tissue then makes up an organ like the thigh bone. And then, of course, we have organs that combine to form a system, an organ system, like in this case, the skeletal system. Okay, so remember this image. We've talked about this a couple times. This is our dear King Philip cried, "Oh, for goodness sake." I think that's a good way to kind of remember that. There are six, that we have life, domain, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, and species. So in kingdom, let's focus in on kingdom right here. There are 6 kingdoms of living things. 2 of them are prokaryotes. 4 of them are eukaryotes. What does eukaryote mean? You know, we've talked about that. What is a eukaryote? Mohammed?
Something that has more than one cell.
No, that would be multicellular. Good guess. Good guess. Don't be
Or
afraid
like the
to give the
neural
wrong answer,
thingy.
guys. We often learn more when we answer wrong than we do when we don't. So give it a try. Felicity.
Cells with nucleuses.
Yes, very good. So we would have 2 parts to that. We would say cells that have nuclei and organs or membrane bound organelles. We usually put the 2 of those together. Basically, though, the reality is you can think of it as if it has a nucleus, it's a eukaryote. If it doesn't, it's a prokaryote. So all the members of Kingdom Animalia are made up of more than one cell, all of them. All the ones here in Kingdom Animalia are multicellular. All the members of Kingdom Plantae, those would be the plants, are multicellular. Now, fungi and protists, they're a little different. They do have cells with nuclei, but they have some unicellular members in them and some multicellular. Now, coming down here to prokaryote, these are the ones that don't have a nucleus in their cell, and they're all only one cell. They are all unicellular. So we can see right here, the multicellular beings, animals and plants. Fungi and protists have some, and bacteria are going to be unicellular, as are the ones that are archaea, which we'll learn about those at the end of this semester. Now, we're going to start our study of the members of Kingdom Animalia with a study of invertebrates. Like we said, they are animals that don't have backbones. And we're going to break it up into 3 weeks. This week, what you're going to learn about are sponges, cnidarians, and worms. So I want to go into a little bit of detail about those 3 today. Start with sponges. So sponges is something that a lot of people don't even know are animals. So you may have a sponge that you use for cleaning, maybe in your shower. Those kind of sponges that look a lot like this one, this shape, they're very common for people to have them on the end of a back brush or something like that. Those are the remains, what's left of the animal after it dies. So usually sponges don't have any body symmetry. What does that mean? No body symmetry. We learned about the 3 kinds of symmetry. Hannah.
That means that all the parts are different.
Yeah, but they kind of, there's nowhere that we can say they have like edges. So remember, something is bilaterally symmetrical. It's roughly a mirror image on one side and the other. We're bilaterally symmetrical. And then something that's round or spherical shape, that would have radial symmetry. So you can draw a line anywhere in that and get roughly identical pieces. Think like a sea star. That would be radially symmetrical. Sponges, they're just unusual. There's nowhere that you can say they're equal on one side and the other. And they don't come together to make tissues. Since there aren't any tissues, there aren't any organs. Basically, sponges are a collection of cells. Now, those cells do work together in a way. So let's watch this video that talks about how sponges work. Basically, a sponge, look at, it's like a bag, like a hollow bag. It has a big opening on this end. And then it has these tiny spikes that hold it together. They give protection and support. And inside there are these cells with little whip-like strings that beat. And when they beat, they pull water and food into the sponge. So let's watch this. This is a special property that sponges have that's unique.
Unlike most of our cells, those of sponges retain a special freedom. They can continuously reinvent themselves, performing some truly miraculous feats. If a sponge is passed through a sieve,
Meaning
its
broken into
cells are
pieces.
separated. But somehow the cells still recognize each other. Over several hours, they begin to come together, building many new sponges. No other plant or animal can resurrect itself this way.
So everybody knows that sea stars, or starfish, they're sometimes called, if you cut them into pieces, those pieces can grow into a new sea star as long as they have part of the nerve ring. Well, a sponge, you can run it through like a blender and those pieces will start coming back together. Now, in this video, we are going to go on a ride through a sponge. So we become a tiny particle and we're pulled through the canals of a sponge. We'll be able to see other small microorganisms like bacteria and things called diatoms. And along the way, we're going to learn that sponge cells catch food and they make those spicules, those structures that support the body. Now, don't worry about the terms as you're listening to that. I just want you to enjoy the ride as we take a ride through a sponge.
Drifting along with countless single-celled organisms, we feel the tug of a current. In the wonderland within, this sponge's cells all work for the common good, but they do it in wildly different ways. As the current draws us on, we pass sponge cells that are making new spicules. The walls themselves are treacherous. They can simply engulf their unfortunate prey. As we are drawn through ever narrower passages, the current slows until we burst into one of the sponge's millions of tiny beating hearts. These are colonocytes, cells whose whip-like flagellae powers the pump. The flow quickens again as it whisks us away, through the labyrinth of canals that lead out, into the sponge's central cavity. What once seemed barely alive is actually a living animal, more complex than we could have imagined.
Now, it said in the video, beating hearts, keep in mind, they don't have organs. It's not really a heart. That's just a term that he used to talk about those flagellae whipping around to pull water in. So the sponge pulls water in, and there's food in that water, and it filters that water so that it gets the food out and then releases the water, and of course, some of the particles as well. All right, those are sponges, and they're very cool. We'll learn a lot about sponges. The next animal is called a cnidarian. Now look at that word. There's a C at the beginning, but the C is silent. You don't say it. It's not cnidarian, it's cnidarian. So cnidarians are animals that use stinging cells to capture food and defend themselves. Can anybody think of an example of a cnidarian, an animal that has stinging cells? Hiba.
Like jellyfish.
Jellyfish are a great example. You got it, jellyfish. So here's some more. We can see here corals are cnidarians, hydras. So corals would be like, this is a sea fan right here. The coral would be in the background here. These are anemones. Anemones are cnidarians. This Portuguese man of war is a cnidarian. These are called sea pens. And then here you've got the coral reef structure right there. So those are all examples of cnidarians. Now, sea pens are kind of cool. So watch this one for a minute. I'm going to turn, it's a little video that you can see of this one. What happens is when a predator comes along, this sea pen that's standing up can expel water. It can release water from its body so that it can sink into the sea floor. So watch this.
The speeded up footage shows how over 4 hours, some of the sea pens gradually deflate and bury themselves in the seabed. It's thought this behavior might protect sea pens from predators, and this may be the first time that evidence has been captured to confirm it. Close examination of the time-lapse clip shows a yellow sea slug, a sea pen predator, enter the scene and make contact with some of them. Each sea pen it touches withdraws into the sediment.
Now, it might not seem like taking 4 hours is a good defense mechanism. That's a long time, but keep in mind that that sea slug is going to eat slowly too. So it'll withdraw, quickly enough to be able to survive. And take a look at this one, Portuguese man of war. Kind of looks a little bit like a jellyfish, doesn't it? The Portuguese man of war is actually not a single animal. It's not a single cnidarian. It is a colony of 4 different kinds of cnidarians that all work together. Now, watch this pretty cool video on the next page of a really interesting cnidarian.
This astounding creature known as Praia is a combination of the 2 basic cnidarian shapes: the pulsing, bell-shaped medusa and the stalk-like polyp with trailing tentacles. Spanning up to 120 feet, Praia is the longest predator in the world, longer even than a blue whale. Stinging tentacles sweep through the water like a massive fishing net. As with other cnidarians, its tentacles are lined with millions of nematocysts for capturing and killing prey. Deeper, the crew spots a Colobonema, a jellyfish with a surprising defense. When startled, it detaches its tentacles, leaving them behind as decoys to distract would-be attackers. To some, these Cnidarians appear fantastic, surprising, even otherworldly. But in this realm, they are the dominant animals.
Kind of cool music too, isn't it? Very ominous. Yeah. So Cnidarians, what they have is these cells called nematocysts. You'll learn about that. They're very cool. They're like a spring-loaded spear. So they've got a sharp point on the end of them, and they have the ability to shoot them out, and they then stick whatever it is that their prey is, and then it can draw the prey back in. So that's a pretty cool mechanism for catching prey and defending against predators as well. All right, then we will talk this week about worms. Now remember, when we're going back here to all of this, here we go, this kingdom phylum, under kingdom Animalia, there's a bunch of different phyla. Well, the phylum Cnidarian is one. The phylum Sponge, porifera is what it's called, is another. And then we have these worms. Now there's 3 different phyla of worms. There are flatworms, roundworms, and segmented worms. Why do you think they're called flatworms? Hiba.
Because they're flat.
Yeah, they're flat. They're flat looking compared to the other ones. The roundworms are going to be round, and the segmented worms, think of them as being like earthworms, like the ones in the picture right there. They have segments in their bodies, those little individual, they look kind of striped as you look at them. So flatworms are mostly flat. They're flattened, and they often are parasites, and they live either inside or on another organism. So when we use the word parasite, what we mean is an organism that does harm to another living organism. So think of a mosquito as being a parasite. A tick is a parasite. They don't help you in any way. They actually harm you if they get on you. So flatworms usually are parasites. Now, some of them are just free living and they don't live on another organism at all. So there are some that live inside the digestive system of another one. Tapeworm is an example of that. This is a tapeworm right here. So tapeworms get into the digestive system of another animal, and then they eat that food that the other animal eats. So the animal thinks it's getting a meal, but the meal is actually being eaten by the tapeworm. And so the animal then basically becomes malnourished. So the way flatworms move, I think, is very beautiful. So look at some of the colors that we have here. Some flatworms are really beautiful. Let's watch the movement of some flatworms in this video.
This animal is a flatworm. They may be among the most obscure animals on Earth. Scientists have described about 20,000 different species of flatworms so far, tenaciously surviving in almost every environment. On land, in the oceans, in freshwater ponds, and in the strangest habitat of all, inside the bodies of other animals.
So if you see a worm and it's pretty flat, it's a flatworm. Now, there are official names for flatworms, roundworms, and segmented worms, and we'll learn those. But for today, we're just getting a little introduction to these. So let's talk about roundworms next. Now, roundworms are different than any of the animal we've talked about so far. Roundworms have a digestive system that is open at both ends. So everything else that we've talked about has only one opening. Food goes in, waste comes out. When you have a sponge, food goes in that central canal, food comes out that central canal. When you have a Cnidarian, Food goes in the one hole, comes out the same hole. Flatworms, just one opening. Roundworms are a tube. So they have an opening at both ends, and that makes them a little bit more advanced than we've had so far. And of course, they're called roundworms because they're kind of round, they're round shape. So their body, a segmented worms is next. The segmented worm has a body that's in segments. So you can see that here, you can see these here. These are ones that have segments to them. Now, sometimes they have organs in every single segment, and others of these segmented worms only have organs in some of their segments. But that's what we're going to be learning about for the next week. You're going to be learning about sponges. You're going to be learning about cnidarians. Remember that the C is silent. And you're going to be learning about the 3 different phyla of worms: the flatworms, the roundworms, and the segmented worms. Anybody have any questions about what you're going to be doing this week? All right, we are going to do a Kahoot now of a review of some of the things that we've learned so far this year. So get your device out or open up your screen to another window. And let me get this started. All right, you go to www.kahoot.it. And here is your game pin. The game pin is 837-696. 837-696. James is ready. All right, here we all go. All right, you can use your real name or you can use a nickname, whatever you would like to go by is fine here. All right, terrific. Thanks for going in so quickly. Fortified. Fortified. Interesting. All right, everybody in? Anybody need more time? Okay, and you have 10 seconds to answer all these, so that's not very long. So you have to think quickly, but also try to get it right. Okay, here we go. Remember that the code is always down here at the bottom, that game pin, so you can always get back in if you get kicked out. The organism pictured is bilaterally symmetrical. Bilaterally symmetrical. So remember, when we say bilaterally, what we mean is 2 sides. There's one place that you can have mirror images of each other. So we are bilaterally symmetrical. The term asymmetrical, right here, this one, that means it doesn't have any symmetry at all. And that would be the only animal that is asymmetrical is a sponge. The only one. All right. James got there first. Deja's close behind with chicken nugget in the third. Here we go. Question 2. The organism pictured is that is radially symmetrical. So remember, radially means there's multiple places along that axis that you can draw a line. You could draw a line here. You could draw a line here. You could draw a line here. You could draw one here. And it would be roughly the same, roughly mirror images anywhere that you draw that line. All right, Cookie moves into third place. Question 3. You probably know what this one is. The organism pictured is real cute. Bilaterally symmetrical. All right, great. Almost everybody knew that one. Bilaterally, yes, it has one. Anything with a face is bilaterally symmetrical. All right, and Deja moves into the lead. Question 4. This organism. That is asymmetrical. So look at that. Is there anywhere that you can draw a line and it forms a mirror image? Nowhere. Nowhere along that. So that is asymmetrical. Sponges are the only asymmetrical animals. All right. Chicken nugget moves on to the board. Question 5. This one. What kind of symmetry does a sand dollar have? Radial symmetry. Very good. So generally when things are kind of round, they're radially symmetrical for the most part. All right, question 6. In this type of skeleton, there are bones inside the body. Unless, like the dinosaur, there is no body, but yeah, endoskeleton. Endoskeleton. Excellent. All right, does not change. Cookie's in the lead. In this type of skeleton, there's a shell outside the body. Exoskeleton. Very good. And in this skeleton, there's water pressure inside the body. That is hydrostatic. That was fast. You guys all knew that one. Hydrostatic. Very good. All right, Cookie's in the lead. James, chicken nugget, Deja, and fortified. The arrangement of organisms into categories based on their characteristics is called, we call the science of arranging them into categories. Classification. Classification. All right. The branch of biology that deals with classification is called, it's a little harder question. It is called taxonomy. Taxonomy. All right, let's see here. So Cookie's still in the lead, holding on to that lead. The genus and species names used to name organisms are referred to as binomial nomenclature. So binomial meaning there's two parts to it. There's the genus and the species. And then nomenclature means naming. So basically it's two name naming is what that means. Binomial nomenclature, two name naming. All right, how are we here now? Chicken nugget takes the lead, not by much. All right. In the wild, baby lions learn to hunt by watching their parents hunt. This is an example of what? This is an example of imprinting. Imprinting. You learned about the different kinds of behavior last week. So imprinting is where they watch and they learn from what the parents are doing. All right, let's see here. When you walk up to a fish tank, the fish often swim to the top and look at you. This is an example of this is called classical conditioning. The fish have become conditioned to expect you to give them food. When you walk up, they think food's coming. They've been conditioned. So that is conditioning. All right, Beth moves into second place. Animals that feed in or on the living bodies of other organisms, doing them harm. What are they called? Those are parasites. Yeah, those are parasites. All right, Hannah moves into fourth. Now you're going to put these in order. Click first, what comes first? Give you a little extra time for this one. Kingdom, phylum, class, order. All right, so not quite half of you guys got this. Remember, these are important. That's why we have that little saying that helps us remember. King Philip cried, oh. So remember that. And I can only do 4. So the next ones are going to be, there we go, are going to be the other ones. Put these in order. order, family, genus, species. So we've got King Philip cried, "Oh, for goodness sake." Kingdom is king, phylum is Philip, cried is class, O is order, for is family, goodness is genus, and sakes is species. Okay, remember the dear King Philip cried, "Oh, for goodness sake," because sometimes we put domain in there. You can also just leave the dear out if it's King Philip cried, "Oh, for goodness sake." All right, let's see who got that one now. All right, well done. A few more questions. Animals that eat only plants are called. They are called herbivores. Now keep in mind, herbivores can and often do eat animal products, especially insects. You know, if you're a grazer and what you're doing is eating the grass and the tree, the bushes off the leaves off the trees and bushes, you're going to get some insects with it. It's just herbivores are animals that have a specific digestive system that is designed to be able to eat plants and get the nutrients out of plants. They have a very, very, very long intestinal tract to allow them to extract those things from the plants that they eat. All right, no changes there. Animals that eat only animals are called. They are called carnivores. Carnivores. At the same time, there are some times that carnivores will eat a plant. You know, they'll eat some plant matter that might be stuck to or on the animal that they're eating. So it's just that they have a very short digestive system because it's really easy to get the nutrients out of other animals. So they don't need a very long digestive system to do that. All right. Question 19. What do we call animals that eat both plants and animals? Omnivores, omnivores. And what I want to point out here is that this is not preference. When we're talking about omnivores, herbivores, and carnivores, we're not talking about what they like to eat. We're talking about the way their digestive system is structured to allow them to eat. So there are some people who only eat plants. They would be vegetarians or vegans. They still have an omnivore digestive system. So they're still called an omnivore. And then there's some humans who only eat animal products. They haven't now become a carnivore. They're still an omnivore because their digestive system is medium size to allow them to be able to digest both plants and animals. All right. Here we go. 2 more questions. The more scientific term meaning warm-blooded. We don't really use the term warm-blooded. We use the term endotherm. Endo means in, so they get their heat from inside their body. Endotherm is the term we use instead of warm-blooded. And now, what is the term that means cold-blooded? This is the more scientific term. Ectotherm. Very good. Ectotherm. So ecto means out. They get their heat from the outside. They get their heat or their cold from their surroundings. So they are called ectotherms. We don't in science use those terms warm-blooded and cold-blooded anymore. All right, in 3rd place, we had James. In 2nd place, Chicken Nugget. In 1st place, who is it? Beth. All right, well done, everybody. That was excellent. And then our runners-up were Deja and Cookie. All right, terrific job. Terrific. It's good to have a little review of some of these concepts from time to time. All right, so I have something else that I want to do now. Let's close this over that I want to do. I want to, from time to time, use the breakout room so you guys can get to know each other a little bit. So what I'm going to do is a little breakup room extra credit activity. So I'm going to tell you the name of, I'm going to tell you a letter of the alphabet. You guys are going to go to the breakout room. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 11 of you. I'm going to make let's do 3 breakout rooms. And you're going to come up with as many animals that have names that start with that letter as you can. You're only going to have about 3, maybe 4 minutes to be able to do that. And then I will call you back when it's time. So I'm going to do 3 breakout rooms. Sorry, I'm having trouble finding them. There they are. So we'll do 3 breakout rooms. It's going to randomly assign you. Somebody needs to write them down. So hopefully somebody in every room has pen and paper nearby. Write them down. You can choose whoever's going to be your scribe if you want to, or you can just all write them down. It's always a good idea to bring pen and paper to class. Whoever ends up with the most animals wins not 1 extra credit point. That looks like 1. You're going to win 5. Everybody in that room is going to get 5 extra credit points. All right. So I'm going to create the room. I'm going to send you to the rooms, and I will call you back in 4 minutes. Okay. Ready? Go. What's up, Felicity?
Accident. I
Oh,
accident.
okay. Okay, you should be able to go back in. Can you join again? All right, I'm gonna move you to room 3. Now you should be able to join. All right. Hey, Alistair.
Hello.
Else will be back in 10 seconds.
Okay. Thing that I need to clarify. Do animals count, or does it have to be like a species? Because there are like tarantula, and then there are a type of tarantulas that start with the letter R. So do those count?
Yeah, we'll count those.
I had like
Okay,
Red
shit.
Fox.
I-
I'm like,
I'm in
meant
then
to
I'm in
say-
a good spot.
I meant to say before you guys left that I didn't want you looking them up. But in the future, I'll be sure and tell you when I want you to look them up. All right, so room 1, that was Alistair and Beth. Are you the only ones left? Who else was in your room?
I was in the room.
Yeah, Muhammad.
Mm.
And those were the.
Mohammed, you're not listed here as being in the room, but that's okay. So hold on here. Okay, so Alistair, room 1. Tell me your Alistair, Beth, and Mohammed. How many did you
I
get?
got 20.
20. All
Rabbit.
right, read them real quick.
Rabbit, raccoon, racer snake, rainbow boa, rainbow grasshopper, rat, rat snake, rat terrier, rattlesnake, red deer, red drumfish, red finch, red fox, red kite, red knee tarantula, red panda, red paper wasp, red razor snake, red spitting cobra, red squirrel. Is that
Okay, good thing red was allowed, right? All right, room 2 was Aaliyah, Daniel, Hiba, and Kian. How many did you guys get?
I think we got 16.
Okay, read them real fast.
Okay. Roadrunner, red-eye tree frog, red wolf, river dolphin, red fox, reindeer, robin, river otter, rabbit, raccoon, rat, raven, rattlesnake, rhinoceros, ram, roadrunner, and rainbow something.
All right, excellent, excellent. All right, room 3, Deja, Felicity, Hannah, and James. How many did you get? $14. All right, can you read them real quick? Okay, oh, look at that. All right, excellent, excellent. All right, so we're gonna play this again at the next, maybe in a time or two. So for this time, Alistair, Mohammed, and Beth all get 5 extra credit points. The way we will play the next time is you have to, if someone else guesses, has the same one, like if 2 rooms guess rattlesnake, nobody gets credit for rattlesnake. If 2 people guess rabbit, nobody gets credit for rabbit. Okay, so it'll be unique ones. That will make it a little bit more challenging the next time. All right, I got to run. I got another class starting in 2 minutes. So anybody have any questions? All right, great class today. Thank you all for participating. I'll see you next Monday. Bye, everybody.